We had a case in Northern Ireland, did we not, of a distinguished journalist who came across information about the murder of two soldiers. And she elected not to give information about that. A court upheld her right not to do so, holding that had she revealed the information, it would have put her life in danger. And that was a valid stance to take. But it is a very, very difficult ethical area. The trick is, don't get yourself in possession of information pertaining to criminality by your source, while at the same time getting information to expose the greater criminality and therefore the greater good.
This journalist was Suzanne Breen, and hers was a case that had the potential to change journalism forever. Breen acquired information regarding the killing of two British soldiers in Northern Ireland on the 7th of March 2009.
The Police Service of Northern Ireland took her to the High Court in Belfast as a result of her unwillingness to reveal her source, and with the backing of the National Union of Journalists, Breen won the right to protect her source under the European Convention of Human Rights.
Protecting sources is an ethical duty which reputable journalists take extremely seriously, hence the NUJ decision to support Breen so vehemently. This inevitably causes friction between journalists and the police, and in Northern Ireland, where such a decision can divide communities, the implications can be life-threatening.
I think particularly in Northern Ireland, you have to potentially remember the polarised views of different communities, and that what one community or section of the community might think is reasonable, another think is totally unreasonable. And that one part of society may have the view that a journalist withholding their sources, and those sources are related to what we call terrorists, is unreasonable. And in their views, that journalist should be compelled to divulge the sources of information. And another part of society will believe it's totally unreasonable.
Northern Ireland is a country fraught with particular tensions between the public, journalists and the police service with regards to revealing sources and information about criminal activity.
There is inevitably going to be a conflict between policemen who want to investigate and who want to have evidence at all times of who knows what and how we know it, and our desire to put into the public domain information that we think is vital and of vital interest to the public, and our need to do that by protecting the people who tell us, because if we don't protect them, they won't tell us and the information will not get into the public domain. And therefore you have to make a judgment, and there is no simple answer in terms of you must always ring up the police and tell them first before you broadcast it. The culture here is we protect our sources, but we do it with a view to protecting the public by putting into the public domain information that we think is vital.
Breen was facing either a spell in prison should she not reveal her sources to the police, or a danger to her life from the IRA should she give them up. Judge Burgess ruled that the journalist's right to life outweighed all else, and stated after the case that the potential threat to her life and that of her family was not just real and immediate, but is continuing.
Another consideration Breen had to take into account was the impact on her career.
The journalist's main stock in trade is information. And the only way you can get serious information in the public interest is to talk to people that some might deem undesirable. But it is hugely important to protect the flow of information and your future informations, that those sources be respected come what may. And in Northern Ireland and elsewhere, a number of journalists have elected to go to prison rather than reveal their sources. It's a strong moral obligation almost, which people have gone to jail for.
Ethically, journalists must balance their duty to protect their sources and the public's right to safety. It has been questioned whether journalists are a help or a hindrance to police investigations aiming to protect the public.
Do we make the job more difficult for the police? I don't know. You see, a number of crimes, miscarriages of justice, acts of collusion have now been exposed by the police themselves But it was very often journalistic investigations that made the public, and by implication the police, aware of what was going on. So do we make it more difficult? I think we all share with the police and with the rest of society an obligation or a desire to see a democratic, open society. And you cannot have that without a properly functioning police force, but equally a properly functioning media that is able and free to investigate and to broadcast.
The landmark ruling in the Suzanne Breen case was considered by many to be a major victory for press freedom, which has now set a precedent in recognising the confidentiality of sources in journalism. If Breen had been imprisoned, the implications for journalism could have been huge.
I think the amount of evidence they would have taken to get to that point would have been very significant. I think the impact of that wouldn't have been about the relationship between PSNI and journalism in Northern Ireland. The impact of that would have been UK, if not worldwide. That if an investigative journalist was imprisoned for not revealing sources from a country which prides itself on having a free press, and then the impact of that would have gone way beyond here, worldwide, certainly into America. It would have had ramifications beyond Northern Ireland into government. It would be, to say a bold step by a judge to do that. I think it would have been a step beyond the pale, frankly.